My name is Anna, and I want to tell you about my first trip to Canada. I was excited and nervous at the same time. It was my first time leaving my country. I was going to Canada to study English in a school in Toronto. After a long flight, the airplane finally landed. I looked out the window and saw snow everywhere. The airport was big and very bright. There were so many people walking fast. Everyone was speaking English. I felt small and a little scared. I carried my suitcase and followed the signs. The signs were in English and French. I could read some of the words, but not all of them. My heart was beating fast. What if I can't understand the people here? I thought. I walked to the immigration area. There was a long line of people waiting to talk to the officers. I watched carefully as people showed their passports and answered questions. I tried to listen to the conversations, but the English was too fast for me to understand. When it was my turn, I felt my hands shake. I walked up to the officer, a tall man with a serious face. He smiled a little and said, "Hello, passport, please." I handed him my passport and tried to smile back. He looked at my passport and then looked at me. "What is the purpose of your visit?" he asked. I knew this question. I practiced it many times before my trip. I said slowly, "I am here to study English." The officer nodded and asked, "How long will you stay?" I replied, 3 months. My voice was shaking, but I was happy I could answer. The officer asked more questions. "Where will you stay? Do you have a return ticket?" I answered as best as I could. I told him about the school and showed him my ticket back home. I started to feel more confident. But then he asked for my school acceptance letter. My heart dropped. I opened my bag and looked everywhere. The letter wasn't there. "Do you have the letter with you?" he asked again. I tried to explain. I think I forgot it at home. My English was not good, and I felt tears in my eyes. The officer looked at me, his face serious. "Wait here," he said. He called another officer and spoke to her in English. I couldn't understand their conversation. I stood there feeling my chest tighten. People around me were busy, walking and talking. But for me, time stopped. I was afraid. Will they send me back? What will I do? The line to immigration was long. I stood there holding my passport tightly. People in front of me talked to the officers. Some conversations were short, and the people walked away smiling. Others took longer, and some looked worried. I tried to guess what the officers were saying, but their English was fast and confusing. I practiced in my head. "I am here to study English. I will stay 3 months." I repeated the sentences over and over. My heart was beating loudly, and my hands felt sweaty. Finally, it was my turn. The officer called me forward with a small hand gesture. He was a man with short hair, wearing a dark uniform. His face was serious but not unfriendly. "Hello," he said, looking directly at me. "Passport, please." "Hello," I said softly, handing him my passport. He opened it and scanned the pages carefully. Then he looked up and asked, "What is the purpose of your visit?" I took a deep breath. This was the question I practiced. "I am here to study English," I said slowly. My voice was shaking, but the words came out correctly. The officer nodded and wrote something on his computer. Then he asked, "Where will you study?" I hesitated for a moment. "In Toronto." At an English school, I replied. Do you have the address of the school? He asked. I quickly opened my bag and took out a piece of paper with the school's address. I handed it to him, hoping it was the right thing to do. He looked at the paper, nodded again, and continued. How long will you stay? 3 months, I said, feeling a little more confident. The officer asked another question. Do you have a return ticket? I opened my bag again and took out the ticket. My hands were shaking, but I managed to give it to him. He looked at the ticket and typed more on his computer. Then he said, Do you have your school acceptance letter? I froze. My mind went blank. The letter. I knew I had it at home, but I forgot to bring it with me. I don't have it, I said slowly, feeling my face turn red. I think I forgot it at home. The officer's expression changed. He closed my passport and looked at me with serious eyes. You need the letter, he said firmly. I felt my stomach twist. I have an email, I said, trying to explain. My English was broken, and I felt tears starting to form. The officer shook his head slightly and said, Wait here. He walked away and spoke to another officer, a woman. They looked at my passport and the paper I gave him. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their conversation looked important. I stood there alone, watching them talk. My legs felt weak and my chest felt heavy. People behind me in the line were staring. My thoughts were racing. What if they don't believe me? What if they send me back? As minutes passed, I stood frozen, gripping the strap of my bag. My mind kept repeating, how could I forget? Why didn't I check my documents before leaving home? The officer returned with another officer, a woman wearing glasses. She had a calm expression but looked serious. The man pointed at my passport and the paper I gave him. They spoke in low voices, but I couldn't understand their conversation. The woman looked at me and said, You don't have your acceptance letter? I tried to explain, my voice shaky. I forgot. It's at home. She frowned slightly. Do you have any proof of enrollment at the school? I thought hard. Proof? What else could I show them? I remembered the email I received from the school. I have an email, I said, trying to stay calm. I opened my bag and took out my phone. My fingers trembled as I unlocked it. The woman leaned closer and asked, Can you show us the email? I nodded quickly, scrolling through my inbox. The internet was slow, and the loading symbol seemed to spin forever. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me as I struggled. Finally, the email opened. I showed it to her, pointing at the words that confirmed my enrollment. Here, I said, feeling a small wave of relief. She took the phone and read the email carefully. The man looked over her shoulder, nodding occasionally. After a moment, she handed the phone back to me. This email is helpful, she said, her tone softer now. But we still need the original letter for our records. My relief disappeared. I don't have it, I stammered. I forgot. The man sighed and looked at the woman. What do you think? He asked. She hesitated and then said, We need to confirm this with the school. It might take some time. They turned back to me. The man said, Please follow us. My heart sank. They were taking me somewhere. I didn't know where, and I felt panic rising in my chest. Where are we going? I asked in broken English. The woman gave me a small smile. Don't worry. We just need to check some details. Please come with us. I followed them through the busy immigration area. People were walking past us, chatting and laughing. I felt like I was in a bubble, disconnected from everything around me. They led me to a small room with a few chairs and a desk. "Wait here," the woman said. I sat down, clutching my bag tightly. The walls felt like they were closing in, and my mind kept imagining the worst. Will they call my school? What if they don't answer? Will I have to go home? The room was small and cold. There were a few chairs lined up against the wall and a desk in the corner. A large clock ticked loudly, and every second felt like an eternity. My stomach churned as I sat down, gripping my bag like it was my lifeline. I noticed two other people sitting in the room. One was a man with a big backpack and a worried look on his face. The other was a woman holding a stack of papers. They both seemed nervous, just like me. The man glanced at me and smiled weakly. "Immigration problem?" he asked in a low voice. I nodded. "Yes, letter, forgot," I said, my words clumsy. He gave me a sympathetic look and said, "Same here, wrong visa." Hearing that I wasn't alone made me feel a little better. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. The woman across from me was talking to an officer, explaining something in another language. She looked upset, but the officer listened patiently. After what felt like forever, the door opened and another officer walked in. He was younger, with a kind face and a notepad in his hand. He looked at me and said, "Anna?" I stood up quickly. "Yes, I am Anna," I replied, my voice shaking. "Come with me, please," he said, gesturing toward a smaller desk in the corner. I followed him, my heart racing again. He sat down and motioned for me to sit across from him. "Okay, Anna, let's go over some details," he said in a calm voice. He opened my passport and asked, "You are here to study English, correct?" "Yes, study English," I said, nodding. "Which school?" he asked, looking at me with curiosity. I handed him the paper with the school's name and address. "This school, in Toronto," I said. He nodded and wrote something down. "And how long will you stay?" 3 months, I answered, feeling slightly more confident. Then he asked, "Do you have the school's acceptance letter?" My stomach tightened again. I forgot it at home," I said slowly, hoping he would understand. He frowned slightly, but didn't look angry. "Do you have anything else that can prove you are enrolled in the school?" I showed him the email on my phone. He read it carefully, then looked up at me. "This is helpful, but it's not the original document," he said gently. I felt tears welling up again. "I am sorry. I forgot. I didn't know." My voice cracked, and I looked down, embarrassed. The officer leaned forward and said, "It's okay, Anna. Don't worry. We just need to verify some details. I will call the school to confirm your enrollment. It might take some time." I nodded, grateful for his calm demeanor. "Thank you," I said softly. He stood up and said, "Wait here for a few minutes. I will be back soon." As he left the room, I leaned back in the chair, trying to breathe deeply. The man with the backpack gave me a thumbs up and said, "Don't worry, it will be fine." His words brought a small smile to my face. Maybe it will be okay, I thought, clinging to that tiny bit of hope. I sat in the chair, staring at the floor, my mind racing. I felt stuck. The room was quiet, except for the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. I kept thinking about the letter I had forgotten. Why didn't I check my bag? Why didn't I print the letter? Suddenly, a thought crossed my mind. The email. I had already shown the email to the officer, but maybe there was more in the message. I quickly grabbed my phone and opened the email again, this time scrolling all the way down. There it was, a PDF attachment. It was the exact same letter I had forgotten to bring. My eyes widened as relief washed over me. This is it, I thought, feeling a glimmer of hope. The door opened and the young officer returned. He smiled slightly and said, "Anna, I tried calling the school, but no one answered. Do you have anything else that can help?" I stood up quickly, holding my phone. "Yes, I have the letter." "Here," I said, showing him the screen. He took the phone and looked at the PDF carefully. His eyes scanned the document, and he nodded. "This is good. This is what we needed," he said, handing the phone back to me. My hands were still shaking as I took the phone. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. The officer sat down at the desk and typed something on his computer. After a few moments, he looked at me and said, "Okay, Anna, everything looks fine now. I will approve your entry." My heart felt like it could finally breathe. "Thank you so much," I said, almost in tears. He gave me a kind smile. "No problem. But next time, make sure to bring all your documents with you." "It's very important." I nodded quickly. "Yes, I will." "I am so sorry." He stood up and said, "Follow me. I'll take you back to the immigration desk." As we walked through the hallway, I felt like a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The officer handed my passport to the original immigration officer and explained the situation. The first officer looked at me and said, "All good now. Welcome to Canada." I smiled and said, Thank you so much." With my passport stamped and my documents cleared, I walked out of the immigration area. The cold air from outside hit my face, but for the first time, I felt warm inside. I was finally here, ready to start my new adventure. As I stepped out of the airport, the cold air hit my face. I zipped up my jacket and took a deep breath. For the first time that day, I felt truly calm. I looked around and saw the snow-covered streets and the bright lights of Toronto. I made it, I thought, smiling to myself. The fear and stress from the immigration process were still fresh in my mind, but I also felt stronger. It had been a tough experience, but I learned so much. I stood outside the terminal, watching people hurry to taxis and buses. My suitcase felt lighter, even though I hadn't taken anything out. The weight of my anxiety was gone. I thought about everything that happened. The forgotten letter, the questions I struggled to answer, and the moment I found the email. It wasn't easy, but I realized something important. Preparation is everything. If I could give one piece of advice to other travelers, it would be this: always double-check your documents. Make sure you have everything before you leave home. Print copies, save them on your phone, and keep them in a safe place. It might save you from a lot of stress. And for anyone learning English, here's what I want to say. Don't be afraid to try. My English wasn't perfect. I made mistakes, and I felt embarrassed. But in the end, I communicated what I needed. The officers understood me, and that's what mattered. Learning a new language is like traveling to a new country. It's scary at first, but every step you take makes you stronger. Even when things go wrong, you can find a way to move forward. As I walked toward the bus station, I felt proud. I had faced a big challenge and overcome it. Now, my journey in Canada was about to begin. I was ready to learn, explore, and grow. And to anyone reading this, you can do it too.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to learn more English through real-life experiences, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Let's keep learning and growing together. See you in the next video.